Rock stars in the house, people. Yeah, the Minimalists are with us. Joshua and Ryan, famous guys, a famous documentary, #1 best-selling books, have taught a whole bunch of you to live with less stuff, to find a cure for your stuffitis, and they've also modeled it. These guys are amazing. The Netflix documentary is just, it's enthralling, and it is done so well. They've been on everything: New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Boston Globe, Forbes, Time, ABC, CBS, all the alphabets. It's all there. Even NPR, so they're there. And they were in town. Rachel did their podcast with them last night. Rachel Cruz, one of the Ramsey personalities, my daughter did. And she said, they're coming over to the office. You got to get them on the air. And I said, of course we got to get them on the air. These guys are big time. Welcome, guys. It's good to have you.
Oh, man. Thank you so much. What a dream come true for us, Dave. Thanks so much for having us, man.
Same for us, man. You guys have been tearing it up out there. We're so proud of you. And you've helped so many people. Approximately 20 million people have been impacted by this message. By the way, if you are a minimalist follower already, which if you're not, that just means you live in a cave somewhere. So get out more. You should get out more. But if you are and you want to talk to these guys, you got a question or a comment for them, maybe you just want to tell them thanks. We're going to take calls in just a few minutes. So the phone number right now, you can get online and tell Kelly you want to talk to these guys, is 888-825-5225. That's 888-825-5225. Now, I don't know what percentage of our world knows every detail about you guys, but it's a bunch. The overlap.
It's quite a bit.
Because we tell people to do beans and rice, rice and beans, which is a form of minimalism to, lower your lifestyle, stop your spending so you got money to get out of debt. And that intersects with your all's message so much that a ton of our tribes, your tribe and my tribe, intersect, don't they?
There's a ton of overlap. I mean, I think you are talking about the same thing that Josh and I are talking about. And that's really about how can we control these impulses that we have on a daily basis. And when we let these impulses run amok, especially with our finances, we can find ourselves in a world of hurt. So, I mean, for Josh and I, our main mission really is to help people realize, well, a couple things. A, you don't need nearly as much as what the advertisements tell you that you need. And that you can be content without chasing that status quo American dream. And really, when someone feels like they have enough, when they feel secure enough, that's when they start to look outward. And that's when they start to see what they can do for their community, what they can do for their friends and family. And that's the one thing we really love about you all is giving. I mean, in the every dollar app, that's the first line item that you have you suggest people budget for is giving. And ultimately, Josh and I were trying to help people be content enough to where they feel like they can give beyond themselves in a meaningful way.
And you have. That contentment is a big deal. 25 years ago when we started teaching this stuff, we told people then, and it's still true today, we live in the most marketed to culture in the history of the world. And marketing in and of itself is not evil.
Right.
But the very essence of marketing, including when you're selling a book or I'm selling a book, is to plant some level of dissatisfaction, discontentment, until I get that item or what the item's going to bring me, and then I feel, or the experience, it doesn't even have to be an item, it could be a vacation, but when I get that, then I'm supposed to be okay. And the problem is the messages are exceeding the gathering of these things, and there's no way that we don't live in the most discontented culture. So I think that's what you guys have tapped into, and it's just gone zoom, zoom. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I'm so proud of y'all, man.
Yeah, it's wild when you think about it, Dave. We see over 5,000 advertisements a day. I mean, that's over 1 million a year.
They're in the bathroom.
It's crazy.
You can't go to the bathroom without an advertisement. It's ridiculous. So tell people that don't know, for the uninitiated, what is minimalism?
So the way I think about minimalism is it's the thing that gets us past the things so we can make room for life's most important things, which actually aren't things at all. The average American household has more than 300,000 items in it. And that's not me going around counting other people's stuff. That's LA Times reported that a few years ago. And it's not that things are inherently bad or evil, just like you talked about marketing. When marketing's done really well, you're being polite and saying, hey, I might have a solution to a problem that you already have.
We do kind of have a problem. When we moved when I was a kid, one of the boxes, you label the boxes you pack stuff in?
Yes.
Was labeled seldom used kitchen items. I mean, that is the world we live in, isn't it?
It's rather specific. I think the thing is, with all those items, they actually get in the way of what a more meaningful life can be. We make these aspirational purchases, like, oh, that looked really great on that mannequin, or that car looked really great in that ad. I think it's going to add value to my life, but is it really going to add value? So for me, minimalism was a way for me to figure out what are the things that are truly going to add value to my life, that amplify, that augment my experience of life, and then get rid of those things that are just in the way. What is that excess that, I look at our items as there are three different types of items. There are the essentials. We all have the same basic essentials, right? We all need clothing and shelter and food. And then there are non-essentials, the things that truly add value to our lives, things that will make our life better when we have them. And there's the third category, and that is junk. That is the seldom used kitchen items, right? And seldom used actually means just in case. I think those are the three most dangerous words in the English language, right? It means I'm going to hold on to these just in case I might need them someday and some
it's
not.
It's a line of somebody that has the psychological disorder of hoarding.
Yeah.
They use that same line, and in a sense, we all have a little bit of that disorder in this culture, don't we?
Well, I was
in case.
I was a well-organized hoarder. So you came to my house. I wasn't a candidate for the TV show because all of my stuff were in all of these bins and boxes, an ordinal alphabetized system of stuff that I was never going to use in my basement, in my second living room, in my attic. All of these things. I had built this mausoleum of stuff called a suburban house and decided, well, I think these things are going to make me happy. Well, maybe the next thing will make me happy. Maybe the next thing. But of course, you get that next thing, and the ephemeral pleasure, it doesn't last far past the checkout line.
And it turns out the VHS collection probably isn't going to work out.
Someday, just in case.
The cassette collection is probably just not going to work out.
That's right.
But so what led you two into this? I know the story, but I'll throw you the underhand pitch.
It kind of started with me. We both grew up really poor in Dayton, Ohio, so just right up the road here in Dayton. And, we thought we were so unhappy because we didn't have any money growing up. I was on food stamps and government assistance, and there was a lot of alcohol and drug abuse in the household, a lot of bad decisions. And the reason we were so discontented had to be because there was no money. So when I went out, I turned 18, I got the entry-level corporate job, and I spent the next decade climbing the corporate ladder. And by my late 20s, I had achieved everything I ever wanted, the six-figure salary, the luxury cars, plural. I don't know what the plural of Lexus is, but...
Lexus.
Lexi.
There we go. Lexi. That's it. Yeah.
I had all the stuff, the closets full of really expensive clothes that I seldom wore, and all of these things. But of course, with that American dream came my version, which was the American debt. I made really good money, but I spent even better money. And that wasn't a dream at all. I realized this was someone else's dream that they had conjured up for me, and this template wasn't necessarily working anymore.
The Minimalists are our guests, Joshua and Ryan, this half hour. If you want to talk, the phone number is 888-825-5225. Kelly's keeping the lines open just for you guys to jump in to have a chance to talk to them. If you haven't seen the documentary, be sure you look it up. If you haven't followed them on social, you should. The Minimalist.com will lead you to everything you want. Very highly rated podcast, and you can see why. We're going to talk more in this next segment coming up. Stick with us. This is the Dave Ramsey Show. Joshua and Ryan join us, the Minimalists, this half hour. If you want to talk to them, the phone number is 888-825-5225. So Joshua was telling his story. He was doing the corporate ladder, gathered up all the stuff, and the stuff doesn't do it for you. You buy enough stuff, it just more stuff, and I tell people all the time, you eat enough lobster, it just tastes like soap. There's just only so much of this stuff you can do, right? And then it reaches a point of satiation in your psychology, and it just doesn't do it anymore. You figure out, there is no Ryder truck following a hearse. The stuff is not going to do it. So what was your story then, Ryan? How'd you get here?
So for me, it's weird, Dave. If you were to have told my 18-year-old self what my 28-year-old self was going to have, I would have been the most excited 18-year-old. Like, wow, I'm gonna be buying a new car. Borrowing money to buy a new. I'm gonna be able to buy a new car every couple of years. I'm gonna be able to get a 2,000 square foot home with 2 living rooms. I'm gonna have a good job at a respectable corporation, and I'm gonna be so happy. And I did have everything that I ever wanted at 28 years old, but I didn't have happiness. I had a lot of discontent. I had a lot of debt. I was miserable, and I didn't really know which way was up. And I remember seeing Josh make these changes in his life over several months to the point where he started making, I remember what really caught my attention is he started giving our boss rules on when our boss was allowed to contact him. Hey man, I'm not going to answer my phone after 9 o'clock. If it's Christmas Eve, it's 6 p.m. and I'm out to dinner, I'm going to ignore your call because it's Christmas Eve and I'm spending time with friends or I'm spending time with family. And that type of talk was kind of sacrilegious. So I went to Josh and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what is going on with you, man? Why are you so happy? And that's when he introduced this thing called minimalism to me. And not only that, he showed me a whole community of people who called themselves minimalists. And it was a wide range of people. There was a guy named Colin Wright who was traveling the world, carrying everything he owned on his back. Mm-hmm. I like having a kitchen table, so that wasn't like the most appealing life. But then there's a guy named Leo Babauta. He had 6 kids, him and his wife living out in San Francisco. There was a gal named Courtney Carver. She was living in Salt Lake City with her teenage daughter. But what I realized is that there are these people living meaningful lives, and they're using this thing called minimalism to do it. So I got really excited. I looked at Josh. I said, all right, man, I'm in. I'm going to be a minimalist. Now what? I didn't really know where to start.
You get rid of your stuff.
Right. So we started with, I didn't want to spend several months packing up like Josh had. I mean, that was a great approach for him, but I just needed some faster results, typical American attitude, right? Mm-hmm. So we came up with this crazy idea called a packing party, where we decided to pack all my belongings as if I were moving, and then I would unpack only the items I needed over the next 3 weeks. So Josh came over and he literally helped me box up everything, my clothes and kitchenware, my towels, my TVs, my electronics, my frame photographs and paintings, my toiletries, and even my furniture, everything. We literally pretended like I was moving. So after 3 weeks of unpacking, you can imagine those first things. I'm unpacking some clothes for work, a toothbrush, some toiletries. Well, after those 3 weeks, I had 80% of my stuff still sitting in those boxes, just sitting there unaccessed. And I had this huge just light bulb moment about how I have spent this past decade of my life accumulating tens of thousands of dollars worth of things to make me happy, and they were not doing their job. So I decided to donate and sell all of it, and that's really where the Minimalists.com started. It was with that 21-day packing party story.
And what happens, I think, with people that are following you guys is that some of them do it by degrees, in that they just limit.
Yeah.
They take their life and just cut it some.
Yeah.
And so that's a level of influence. And then some of them go down further than you. Like, for instance, the guy traveling the world that's in the documentary that you mentioned, he's down to just 2 bags of stuff and on his shoulders.
Right. Everything he owns
is on his
right
back.
there.
And at one point, you were like 288 items you were?
Yeah. Just that was sort of I realized that there was this weird sort of competition going on in this whole minimalism space where it was like, because I think minimalism is not about deprivation, right?
Yeah, that's what I was getting towards.
Because if that's a contest, I'm not going to win, because I saw one guy own 50 items and someone else was like, well, no, I own 45, and there's someone else who owns 15, and eventually you're just naked and running in the street. That wasn't appealing to me. I'll tell you what, Dave, if you came to my house right now, we have a 5-year-old daughter, so my life looks appreciably different now at age 37 than when I was 28 and I first discovered minimalism.
Right. Yeah.
And so you came to our house now, you wouldn't say, oh my goodness, this guy's a minimalist. You'd probably just walk in and say, wow, they're pretty tidy, this family is.
Yeah, they're simple.
Yeah.
Simple living, yeah.
It's because we don't own much, but everything we do own adds real value to our lives. Each of our belongings, like my car, my clothes, my kitchenware, my furniture, has a function.
And it changes the way you purchase something.
Yeah.
You start looking at it like, really?
What's the real cost of this? Because sometimes there's a price tag. The price tag says this widget's $100, but what does it also cost to fuel the thing, to change the oil in the thing, replace the batteries in the thing, store the thing, clean the thing?
The more stuff you own, the more repairmen you have to know.
Yes, and then it ends up owning you.
Yeah. It piles up. Very cool. All right, let's jump on the phones and see who's out there. Looks like Kansas City's calling in, and Elizabeth is with us. Hey, Elizabeth, your question for Joshua and Ryan.
Hey there. Hey, Dave. I just want to say thanks for all that you do, and I'm so excited that Ryan and Josh are talking about this. This is so needed in our society. I'm a single mom, and I wanted to know, I have 2 kids, a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. Their father is very successful attorney and gives all kinds of fun, expensive gifts, and they're actually going on a trip right now overseas for
so
2 weeks.
You got Disney Dad in the background. Yeah.
Yes,
so what's your question?
How can I influence my kids towards minimalism and wholeness? But it doesn't come from things. What do you guys think about that?
You know, I first embraced minimalism. I had this pivot point. My mother died, my marriage ended, both in the same month. And these two events forced me to look around and start to question what had become my life's focus. And Elizabeth, I realized that I was focused on the wrong stuff. And so when I started simplifying my life, it took me about 8 months. I radically simplified. People around me started noticing something was different. Ryan came to me and said, hey, why the heck are you so happy lately? People at work were saying, you seem less stressed. You seem so much calmer. Why aren't you being as mean as you used to be? And it opened up the door for me to talk about this thing, because I never jumped up and said, look at me, I'm becoming a minimalist, and you need to too. It's not about the proselytizing of minimalism. It's about showing people what the benefits are. So I always start with a question. How might your life be better with less? And we do that with our 5-year-old daughter right now. Also, how might your life be better if you're giving instead of just taking all of the time? So I think whether we're dealing with adults or kids, we have to talk about what are the benefits of simplifying for you, because I think they're different for each of us. For me, it was just finances at first, but then it was rediscovering time for my creativity and for other values in my life that were important. But what are the benefits for you, Elizabeth, and then what are the benefits for your kids?
Yeah, just talk it through with them, and you just the thing is, how do you define what's important?
Yeah.
That's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, we're redefining what's important.
Yeah.
The gathering of stuff is not what's important.
Right.
And it's not a lack of stuff.
No.
It doesn't have to be that you're not a bad minimalist if you have over 104 items. I mean, you can't. There's not a mark like that. It's a mindset that says stuff is not where I'm going to draw my happiness. Stuff is not where I'm going to draw my meaning. Is that right?
Exactly. I'm so glad you bring that up, because the packing party, you're right. Like me packing up my stuff and being confronted with 80% of my possessions. You're right. It wasn't the packing up of the stuff. It wasn't getting rid of the 80% of stuff that was freeing. What was freeing is reprioritizing what my priorities were. Because up until that point, if you would have asked me, hey, Ryan, what are your priorities? I would have said, well, my health, that's a major priority, but I was eating fast food every day. My finances, I want to retire, but I was spending money on all that stuff.
Yeah.
And what I realized is my priorities, it's not what I say I do, it's what I actually do.
Amen. Joshua and Ryan, thanks for hanging out. The Minimalists.
Man, it's been awesome.
We are slightly cooler than we were a few minutes ago.
Get out of here.
Slightly, yeah.
Thanks so much for having us.
Hey, you guys check out their podcast. The Minimalist is one of the top podcasts in the world. Theminimalist.com for all the information you need. I follow them on Twitter. You can. Check all of their stuff out. Check the best-selling books out. You won't be sorry you did. This is the Dave Ramsey Show.